Good morning, welcome to another video. This is part 2 of my Ford Escort Cosworth police car videos. Couple of things before we dig into it. Lots of people are telling me they're not getting notifications of my videos, so please unsubscribe, resubscribe and click the notifications button. It does make a difference here if you're subscribed, and it does help the algorithm and other people finding the video if you click like and if you get engaged in the comments. And when you get engaged in the comments, we get fantastic stuff like this. Chris, many years ago, just before the Escort Cosworth was developed, a nice gentleman and friend of my dad called Rod came to stay at my parents' B&B. He always came in a shiny Sierra Cosworth, but one winter's day, he came in a new shape Escort with barely any interior. That evening, I needed a lift to the next village, about 6 miles down the country lanes. He offered to give me a lift in said Escort. When I got in, he told me this was a pre-production test model and don't worry about the mess of the wiring loom and non-existent dashboard. OMG, I've never been so scared as he showed me what this car was capable of on a dark, slippery country lane. I will never forget that journey and the fact he showed me and my father, who was an ex-rally driver, everything. Great story, pre-production Escort Cosworth. Fantastic, love that. 999s of Britain says, from what one of the Northumbria now retired inspectors told me, the Cosworths were great but liked to crack engine blocks. They'd fly up the A1 at warp speed at high temp, then come down to a sudden stop while parked at the scene, cool down quickly and the block would crack. Might explain why some had so many engines. Great comment, backs up some stuff that's coming later in the video. And finally, I recall getting stopped by one of them from Cheshire in my Mark II Escort. Once he realised it was a real rally car, an interesting discussion of Escort evolution ensued and no charges were mentioned nor brought. He also goes on to say, I am ex-West Yorkshire Police and you'd have to be mad to buy an ex-police traffic car. They're damaged on every panel, the sumps get smashed, the interiors are butchered, the seats are knackered, the wheels and drivetrains are destroyed, they're rammed by other cars, abused by bored bobbies on night top speed testing and doing donuts in car parks. All great fun, but not an ideal second-hand buy. Thank you for you 3 people for commenting. There were thousands of excellent comments, and this video would not be possible if you hadn't all engaged and got involved. So yeah, hit like, hit subscribe, and leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Another thing that came up in the comments is, when the Escort Cosworths were in active duty as police cars, it seems that it almost became a badge of honour to try and outrun the Escort Cosworth police car, another boat. So, despite the fact that the Escort Cosworths were brought in to deter the joyriders saw it as a challenge, and then they'd go out and deliberately goad the Escort Cosworth and see if they could get chased. And more than one of you in the comments incriminated yourselves by saying that you were chased by police Escort Cosworths back in the day. So I appreciate that, and maybe change your usernames. Let's get into it then. For part 1, I had 8 police Escort Cosworths. I found 3 more, so 3 more have become available. So last time we had 3 that had a paper trail, 1 that had gone cold, 1 that had gone missing, and 3 that I had no data on. But now we have 1 that's safely stowed in a garage, the 1 that might sell in March, 1 that is hopefully going to be a rally replica, 1 that is still missing and I need some help to find it, 1 that's been found and confirmed still alive, great, 1 that was burnt out, 1 that I think might be stolen and possibly in someone's garage, but I'm just guessing. 1 with no updates at all, and 3 new ones. So, starting where we started last time, K338FEW. This was the one that was MOT'd in January, 12 owners, 24,000 miles with a mileage warning. Changed hands in January 2023 and was on Northumbria Police Force. So, in my last video, I said I don't know where this car is. I did find a forum post from a chap called Big Geoff. His post from April 2009 said he bought it, basically. He didn't know it was a police car, but he did suspect it. He pulled the headlining down, he found where there were holes in the roof, and he says after that it lasted 2 weeks, because he obviously didn't like the idea that it was a police car, so he sold it on. So where did it go next? Well, this is a nice one, because a chap commented on my Facebook page saying, I've had this car since 2009, and it's safely stashed away in my garage. So we found one. Thank you very much for giving me that comment. Here's the car in the garage next to a Sierra Cosworth, and Love it. I love that we managed to find that one. The next one is L255YNL. This was the one that failed an MOT in January. It's having some work done and is about to come up for sale. Few comments on this car. Phil says, I owned this car 24 years ago. I smashed it into some barriers and sold it with 105,000 miles on the clock for 8 grand. It now has a completely different engine, as the engine in the photos is from a newer model. Unfortunately, only memories remain. It was bought from a car dealer in Mexborough. It had the engine rebuilt and it never ran properly. The turbo was cutting out, etc. Then there was another one. Hi, I owned L255YNL from 2012 to 2015 and I have a lot of info and memories with it. Basically what happened was he had a 2-seater Fiesta with a roll cage, and then a baby came along and he said, right, I'll sell that and I'll have a family car. And he bought a Cosworth as a family car. It was this Cosworth. I brought my baby home from hospital in this car and he's now 9. And the first few years of his life were spent in it with me, as well as working nights in it and being followed home most early mornings by people wanting to steal it. I think I still have the original paperwork, or he did email me and say he couldn't find it. But this bit's interesting. The car was used for press photos, which is why it's the most famous. Then it was given to the chief of police to use as his daily. So it never was a pursuit car. It might have rushed to an emergency or two, but it wasn't one of the joyrider chasers. The reason I sold it was some idiot in a £200 Corsa ran into me at some lights, smashed the back end, and then while waiting for the insurance to be sorted, a guy offered me a large amount as it was standing, and then he got paid out for it basically. And there's a couple of videos on his YouTube channel of him doing like high-speed flybys and trying to get the car working properly. So this chap says it never was an actual full-on police car, but a contradictory comment then comes in. I almost bought it for £21,000 back in 2018, but the seller took a higher offer and I went and bought something else. I liked the history behind it, but it needed a lot of work. It had the wrong head, as you say, which backs up what other people have said about it having a different engine. The front wings had been replaced at some point and not to the greatest standard. It had rust and the paintwork was needed. There was talk that it had done 280,000 miles at that point or more, as the mileage history on the HPI is scatty in the early days. Still gutted it never came off, as I feel the history outweighs the negatives, and it's good to keep cars with a backstory like these alive for all to see. So, I don't know. What's the true story on that car? What's the true mileage? What's the true engine? I think essentially, we know pretty much from that it's probably not running its original engine, or if not, its original head. I don't think that matters. I think what matters is that this car lives, and whoever does buy it at that auction in March acknowledges the history that car has and does their very best to put together a portfolio to explain it. And maybe we can revisit this if some more information comes out. But lovely stories on L255YNL, really filling in the gaps as to where that car's been all these years. Now, my third one in the first video was M969PRM. I said it had never been MOT'd, 4 owners, sold in March 2022, and it passed all the checks. Now, this was an interesting one because I had 2 great comments on this, which led me down another little rabbit hole. I'm sure M969PRM used to work patrol in Cumbria back in the 90s. It did. I can remember getting chased by it when I was 15 or 16, ticking school on my dirt bike wearing a balaclava, a shirt and tie. We also had a red unmarked Astra GSI that used to patrol as well. Brilliant. So someone was going around when they should have been at school, riding a moped, dressed in a shirt and tie and a balaclava, being chased by an Escort Cosworth. Can't make that up, can you? Now, Instagram user RSTaz28 filled in the gaps for me. It is an ex-Cumbria police car. I bought it already stripped down to have a custom cage fitted, and I am led to believe the car was crashed badly many years ago. The shell had a lot of work and new panels, pretty much a new shell actually. Then it was left in a barn for years with all the parts. It's a base model, no pop-out rear windows, fog lights or sunroof. I sold it to a friend who's not done much with it yet. And when I asked how long until it's finished, he said it's going to be years. So, M969PRM, we found it. We found someone that was chased by it. And here it is now on its way to being turned into a rally replica. I don't know when it'll be finished. I hope it's going to be a Repsol replica, but I'll update you if I hear any more about that car. Cosworth number 4 from my last video, L602UVE, MOT expired in 2016, showing 75,000 miles, written off in 96, showing 2 colour changes. It was painted silver in 97 and then put back to white in 2016. So was someone trying to return this car to its roots. Now, there's a great comment from someone called Gary who said, L602 UVE was the fully livered Ford demonstrator loaned to forces for evaluation purposes. I have a photo of it on loan being driven by PC Dave Wilkinson of Great Manchester Police. Great Manchester never bought any Escorts, but they did use Sapphires. The picture of this car was the one Ford loaned to police forces for evaluation, and the picture is taken in the yard at Dave Wilkinson's small holding. He's in the driver's seat, and that's his ex-wife in the picture. A proper action shot from Bolton back in the day, he says. Also, on this car, note the lack of the splitter, the higher suspension and the motorsport style wheels, which brings us on to the next car and my favourite comment of all. This is number 5, M982GAT. In my last video, I said it was sold in 2006. There's no record on the DVLA or a car check website, so I had nothing on that car. However, many people got in touch and said it's had a plate change. It's either running on M1CKK, M419YWE or J1KOS. I think it's now on J1KOS. And the MOT expired in 2009, showing 45,000 miles. Last logbook issued 2012. So I think this car's still out there, and it's on J1KOS. However, the really cool bit is this comment here. M982GAT was a motorsport shell with the sunroof aperture to accommodate the light bar assembly, and it did have electric windows. We developed some standard rate suspension that added an extra inch to the ride height. It had a full-length sump guard for use off-road and on housing estates, bumping up curbs, and a mild tune to take it to 240 horsepower. The engine never failed as it was always run up to temp and cooled down properly. It had an engine run-on device fitted so the car could be left after pursuits without turning it off and cooking the engine. It was never crashed in any way that would cause structural damage, although the paint was scuffed in places, as the tactic was to come so close to the subject vehicles that they were stopped in a way that they couldn't ram the police. The car was virtually faultless until it was replaced at 54,000 miles by ProDrive Imprezas and then FQ360 Evos, then eventually BMW 330s. A recurring fault with the Escort was the Motorola wastegate solenoid on the turbo, but the engine, clutch and transmission were never opened for repairs, and it was serviced every 3,000 miles. The suspension took a hammering, but it never broke. Around 2008, I was shown some photos of the car, and it was still around, owned by someone in the RS Owners Club. The car transformed police response by working with a Vauxhall Senator, driven by a traffic officer with a support police dog handler. When the car left the force, it was taken to a local paint shop where it was touched up. As he said, only superficial damage, not dents and scrapes. Then it was sold at auction. I recall we paid 18 grand for it, the police force did, and sold it 3.5 years later for 13 grand, which made it a cheap car for Humberside Police. It was in such good shape, I wanted to buy it, but I didn't have the money at the time. In summary, a unique car that was used in a tough role, but looked after in a unique way and did not suffer as a result. What a fantastic comment from the chap that helped put these police cars in the police force. So there we go. It was a motorsport model. It had raised suspension and it lost the front lip because the police found that the front lip was constantly getting ripped off or damaged. There's also an anecdotal comment somewhere in the comments from someone saying that the joyriders would actually deliberately go in places where they knew the Cosworth couldn't get because it was so low, which is why certain forces removed the splitter and raised the suspension, and of course fitted the sump guard. So, brilliant. M982GAT is still out there somewhere. If you've got that car or know who's got it, then do get in touch. We know that it's around, but I do feel like the trail is still kind of cold on that one because it was MOT'd so long ago. So let me know. Number 6, L76WRG. This is an interesting one. I had no data. All I had was a car check from 2006 showing 6 owners and the last owner changed 2003. L76 was actually a pair of Cosworths on the Northumbria force, L75 and L76. L75 is a new car to me, but L76WRG has been destroyed. It had a certificate of destruction put against it, issued in June 2006. A commenter called JP Mix says it was owned by a guy local to me in the early 2000s. It went on fire and was written off. So there we go. That car is no more. However, There are stories that a police Cosworth was stolen and burnt out in the yard. I can't prove that, and I don't know if this car is it, but it would make sense. Now, police Cosy number 7, L475BRG, in my last video, I said this car was changed to black and put on the Daz 5885 number plate. I was wrong. That was a different car. Daz did own this white one, but then he went and bought a black one, which was a different car. However, this is interesting. This car was sold in 2004. It was painted Imperial Blue between 2004 and November 2005, but it was listed as stolen in 2005. But the last logbook was issued in 2012. So if it was listed as stolen in 2005, how was a logbook issued against it in 2012? Either it was stolen and recovered and the stolen tag hasn't come off it, or it's still stolen and someone's hiding it. I don't know. Number 8, N693LNW. I said 4 previous keepers, last keeper changed 2006. I had no data on it. This was the ex-Skipton car that someone had made a scale model of. Now, I had nothing on that car previously. However, Retro Cars Reborn says scrap marker on it, 16th of Feb 2006. So was that the car that was torched outside the police station and then scrapped? I don't know. Somebody tell me. I'd love to know. After that, I've got the new Cosworths that have been found as a result of the comments and all your hard work after that video. K338FEW. It's thought now to be on K434CAX. But either way, the MOT expired in 2011, showing 73,000 miles. And at the MOT in 2010, it failed on a headlamp, but it also had advisories on rear tyres, handbrake efficiency, and oil and coolant leaks. Nothing more on it since. You tell me. I don't know. K338FEW or K434CAX. No idea. I've got nothing more on that one. Just as I was about to publish this video, I was told by someone that this car may well be the one that was wrapped around a lamppost by the police in Swansea 2 weeks after it was brought onto the force. If you can prove this, do let me know. Police Cosworth number 10, L75WRG. This is the car that we talked about earlier on. Another car with a really interesting story. It was Northumbria Police Force. It was first MOT'd in 2009 with mileage unknown. However, in 2005, it was owned by a chap called Rob, who bought it from a dealer. So it's 10 years old at that point. The dealer sold a car to the Cosworth owner that was no good. And the Cosworth owner who traded in the Cosworth went back to the dealer and said, I want a refund, I want my Cosworth back. The dealer said no, so previous owner reported the Cosworth stolen, which gave Rob some major headaches because he'd bought the Cosworth from the dealer. So the Cosworth was taken off Rob while all this was investigated. It sat in a police compound for more than a year. It went to court twice before it was eventually thrown out. So poor Rob buys a Cosworth from a dealer, has the police come round and take it away because they suspect that it's stolen, even though it's not. Rob doesn't get to enjoy the car. And then basically he's a young guy, he runs out of money and he has to sell it. So in the forums, it's advertised for sale in April 2005 for 9,250 quid. But it doesn't sell until July when the price is reduced to 8 grand or nearest offer. Rob virtually gave this car away in the end. Between 2005 and 2009, after all that, it undergoes a significant restoration, and then it appears in Scotland around about 2009, restored. It then sells restored for about 13 grand. That's when the MOT trail starts in 2009, with the mileage stated as unknown. So I think it was restored and the MOT history was zeroed back to zero as a sort of thing to say this was when this car was totally rebuilt. Look at the photos. It underwent significant works. So, where is it now? I don't know. I think it's been squirreled away by someone and it's in careful ownership. But there's no paper trail since 2011 at the last MOT showing 3,140 miles, which, as I said, I presume is 3,000 miles since the rebuild. Now, I've got one more, my final police Escort Cosworth. This is M973PRM. First registered in October 93, used by Northumbria Police Force, shows 2 colour changes and I think it's now blue. First MOT appears in 2006 and then the most recent MOT was 2021. It has covered barely any miles between 2006 and 2021. I've got the 188 miles a year, 300, 159, 237, 330. And the last few years, it's done 0 miles. So M973 PRM, someone is sitting on that car and looking after it. So there we go. 11 police Ford Escort Cosworths. If there's any more, then let me know in the comments. Apparently there was some in Swansea. Apparently there was a police Escort Cosworth that the Swansea police had for 2 weeks before they wrote it off. I can't prove that. I've got no photos. Apparently there were some undercover cars which were grey or blue. No idea. I'd love to find some more. And I'm going to conclude this video by again saying thank you to everybody who got involved, and again reminding you to subscribe and maybe unsubscribe and resubscribe to get the notifications. And I'm going to finish with this fantastic and very useful comment from someone. My Uncle Dave made the screws that held the phalange into the upper right-hand left support. His wife, Auntie Ethel, was a weatherman on the radio back when it was in black and white, who broadcast through the month on every third Saturday of the week. They had 3 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. 3 of the girls went to private school at the local comprehensive, and the boys were homeschooled and were bullied by the other kids in her class. Both of them are now doctors at a dental surgery in Birmingham, helping the homeless find a dog or a box of jelly deals. They tell me living in the capital is difficult as the bus service is very infrequent. They're everywhere, and when 5 comes, that one has a horse-drawn carriage pulled by a bull on its way to be milked by George, my father's first cousin to his brother's 3rd wife, who lived in Scotland near to Portsmouth. He had one of those cars, as well as the 5th one ever made, which was the 12th car off the production line at Volvo in Germany. I'll email a letter that he typed for me by hand. I hope green pen is okay, as I can't read yellow writing. I might be an unknown number, so I'll leave a message in case you do answer. It will detail everything about the car, including the change from 4 wheels to 2, which is when I would get a new brake lever on the upper bar at the local dealership before being turned around and had 2 extra wheels fitted onto the left side underneath. Together, we'll find these buckets on our own, and we'll get them found, or at the very least, located. My favourite comment of the whole thing, because it just goes to show that everybody has little connections to all of these things. And my secret code word for if you made it to the end of the video is Geoff. Where do we find the jelly deals? Thanks very much for watching, and let me know if you want to see more videos. I may well do the Ford Sierra Sapphire Cosworth ex-police thing. But most importantly, tell me more about these Escorts. Come on, there's still some unanswered questions, and I want the answers to those questions. But I definitely don't want some jelly deals. Thanks for watching.
Geoff buys cars. Still, YouTube's most boring car channel.